Your players are showing up in an hour and you're supposed to be prepping tonight's game session. But instead, you're contemplating the ecological impact of the green dragon living in the forest and how it would change, well, everything. Or you're musing over the complexities of feudalism and how your NPC's choices would affect the economy in light of those. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely do that. Being a game master can put you in an awesome creative space. And I think that's why we do it. Well, I know that's why I do it. I really enjoy the creativity that comes with running games and creating my own worlds. But sometimes that creativity gets in our own way when all we need to do is create tonight's game session. And we get interrupted by our own crazy ideas. And don't get me wrong, the crazy ideas can be really useful and will come in handy for the next 3 or 4 game sessions down the road. But right now, they're in my way. So I don't know if you guys do that too, but if you do, I'm here to help. Let me hop in and apologize for any sloppiness in the editing of this video. As you can see, I'm also reorganizing and redecorating the game room behind me. So the lighting and camera angles aren't at their best. But I wanted to jump in here and release this video before I released the factions video, because I wanted it all to make sense, this mindset of developing an efficient campaign process. There's this mindset I have while working on adventures and campaigns that helps me stay organized. And I realized while I was editing the factions video that I probably need to explain that as part of this campaign prep process. And also organize it in a way that I can teach it to you guys. And in doing so, it helps me be more aware of this process that I mostly done subconsciously, and now hopefully me being more conscious of it moving forward helps me even more. So what is this thing I do? Well, let me show you. I organize the process into component parts. The first one being session prep. And like it sounds, session prep involves just what I need for the next session. And this is why I specifically recommend 2 simple locations as the first step in the campaign prep process, so that you don't get bogged down in all the pieces of the campaign. You only focus on those 2 simple locations, because those 2 locations provide the session prep for your first few sessions. And really, that's all you need. You never need to be more than 1 or 2 sessions ahead of your players. And if you haven't already, you can see that video where I talk about the dungeon and the village as your 2 starting locations. The next category is campaign prep, and the reason I find it important to make a distinction between session prep versus campaign prep, because session prep needs to be done in order to play this week. When you have time for greater design space, campaign prep is really useful. And this is where the development of factions come in, because the factions help you with your session prep, because the factions provide a structure that helps you expedite your session prep. Another useful part of campaign prep is gathering maps, modules, and adventures that you can steal bits and pieces of in order to build your campaign. The third category is encounter design, and of course, encounter design can be done as part of session prep and also part of campaign prep, so it transcends the 2 previous categories. I covered a good example of encounter design when I showed you the shadow puzzle in the 2nd level of the dungeon. That's a more elaborate encounter design. And a more simple example was on the 1st level of the dungeon, where we decided to have 3 zombies against our 1st level characters, but then space those zombies out far enough that no matter which direction the players entered the dungeon, they wouldn't get attacked by all 3 of those zombies on the first turn. And the last category is world building. And world building can be extremely fun, and it includes things like creating pantheons of gods, creating different governments and trade systems, cultural beliefs and spiritual beliefs of all the different nations and peoples. And while all of that is fun, none of it is particularly necessary for the next session. However, when you do have a chance to create those things, it helps you create a broader and richer world, and then that informs your session prep and campaign prep. So the world building is definitely useful, but it's not as much of a priority as the individual session prep for your next game session. And it's also important to remember that as your players interact with your world from session to session, they inform the world building process too, because their actions have consequences as they interact with your different factions. And as those factions respond to your players' movements and other factions respond accordingly, that helps you develop your world. And the more developed your world becomes, then the more that informs your campaign prep and your individual session prep. So I know this was a short video, but I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comments below. It definitely felt like groundwork that needed to be laid before I'd finished the factions video. Maybe you guys didn't need this, but I find anything that helps me organize my thinking or my planning makes me more efficient with my time and effort, whether that's planning a Dungeons & Dragons campaign or organizing the stupid game room. Either way, thanks again for visiting the Dire Den, and I'll see you next time.